Grab a seat, sip some wisdom, and stay a while. This is the Prosperity Lounge, where growth gets personal.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Prosperity Lounge, where hope meets freedom and growth gets personal. I'm Joey Ruffalo, best-selling author, financial coach, and your go-to guide for making smart money moves, building businesses with purpose, and creating a life filled with peace, clarity, and impact. If you're tuning in tonight, thank you so much again for joining us on our new Friday night time slot. We're live every Friday from 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern Time here on Praise 96.3 FM. Also streaming in real time on the Praise app and on YouTube at the Prosperity Lounge. Also on Facebook, you can find us there as well under the Joey Ruffalo profile. That's just temporary for now. The thing with Facebook, guys, every 30 days, those videos get deleted. So if you want to watch the replays, make sure you are on the YouTube channel. So head over to youtube.com at the Prosperity Lounge, hit subscribe, and hop into the chat. We'd love to hear from you. Bring your questions, comments, and, of course, all your support for us and our guest tonight. You can call us, and please call us. We're still waiting for our first caller. I'll shout you out on air from the mountaintops. 865-577-4885, 865-577-4885. And if you don't feel like calling, you can text us, 865-236-1791. That is 865-236-1791. And text us during the show if you have a question. So last week we had a powerful conversation with Brad Fleming from Home Smiles, Knoxville. He talked about protecting your biggest investment, your home. Brad reminded us that small maintenance now saves on big expenses later. He also shared how being proactive in home care is really financial wellness in disguise. Again, if you've been listening for a while, the running theme of being proactive versus reactive, it really seems to come up a lot here, over and over again. I love it. Key takeaways from the show last week. We had a comparison to oil changes in your car, why you wouldn't skip oil changes or car maintenance. So why are you ignoring your HVAC, your gutters, your dryer vents, typical home maintenance stuff? Talked about preventative home maintenance is one of the most overlooked parts of financial planning. Most people just pay for it when it comes as opposed to planning for it. And perhaps most powerfully, maintenance gives you peace of mind, not just protection. I love that. Thanks, Brad, for coming on and for giving us that wisdom. If you missed it, you can go back and watch the replay. And while you're listening, don't forget to visit theprosperitylounge.com. There you'll find our free 8-step action guide to living paycheck to paycheck. I said living paycheck to paycheck. Stop living paycheck to paycheck. That's what you want to stop. Our student loan survival kit and access to our prosperity planner, our budgeting tool that's free for 30 days. It has helped hundreds already gain clarity and control of their money. Now, tonight's guest brings that same energy of ownership and intention, just in a totally different setting. Her name is Whitney Holliday, and she is the founder of Camp Honey Coffee, a brand new coffee shop and community space right here in Knoxville. From burnout and breakdowns to bravery and bold new beginnings, Whitney's story is the perfect blend of personal grit and public grace. If you ever dreamed of starting over, starting new, or turning a painful chapter into a powerful mission, this episode is for you. So today I'm excited to welcome someone who's turned pain into purpose and burnout into bravery. Whitney Holliday, founder of Camp Honey Coffee in Knoxville. Whitney's story is raw, real, and incredibly inspiring. We had a great conversation the other day. We just met about 3 weeks ago, maybe even 2 weeks ago. I think even less than that, actually. It's been crazy. From outside, it looked like she had it all. Corporate job in Expedia, a federal grant-winning nonprofit role, a resume full of accomplishments, but behind the scenes, burning out, losing herself, reaching a breaking point. Walked away from everything she knew without a job lined up. Crazy, I know. Took a trip to New York City alone, rediscovered herself and came back with one goal: never work for anyone else again. I love that. What followed was a crash course in courage. Fueled by a mix of heartbreak, honesty, and a little bit of holy anger, Whitney launched Camp Honey Coffee. With her husband Ryan by her side, they risked everything, including health insurance, savings, stability, to create a space that would heal others the way she needed healing. Now, this isn't just a coffee shop, and believe me, I've been in there a couple times already. In fact, for those on the live stream, I am drinking my caramel mocha, ice with oat milk, the Prosperity Mocha. We'll talk more about that later. It's a space for community, inclusion, and brave conversations. And Whitney's leadership style, I love this, everybody. So you can learn something from this. Shoulder to shoulder, dishes, bathrooms, espresso machines, doing it all. Not because she has to, but because she wants to lead by example. Her story is a reminder that your lowest moment may just be your launching pad to your greatest breakthrough. So let's meet Whitney and hear how Camp Honey Coffee went from a crazy idea in COVID to what is already becoming a cozy East Tennessee staple. Whitney, welcome to the lounge. We're glad you're here.
Thank you so much for having me, Joey. That was the nicest thing I've ever heard about myself. Thank you.
Well, it's all you. We had a great conversation the other night learning about each other, and I mean, you're just inspiring.
Well, thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
So I want to get into a little bit of your background, and then a little bit later on we'll shift into coffee. But you talked a bit about, and some of the intro talked about, you left what you would consider a dream job. Can you talk about what finally pushed you to say, I'm done?
Yeah, I think that the burnout is exactly, what landed me where I am now. I will say it was an extremely difficult time period of my life, but now coming out on the other side of it, I am so grateful for the experience. Protecting yourself from burnout is something that, having had this conversation with several people now, I see that burnout is a major problem in the workforce, and it's something that I'm now trying to prevent in myself and prevent in my employees as well. I really want to be a good employer. That's something that's majorly important to me and is my mission, behind the scenes, because I feel like no one can pour from an empty cup. I was pouring from an empty cup for so long. And now, I want to make sure that everyone surrounding me's cup is full so that we can all move forward together. I think it's really important, like you said, shoulder to shoulder. And, going back to, being proactive rather than reactive. Every approach I take, I try to be proactive rather than reactive now. I think I lived in a reactive space for so long in my professional life that may have caused a lot of my burnout. So I'm really trying to prevent that from happening now.
I love that. And I'll a quick aside from this. So far, every episode I've had a guest on, they've used puns that have been related to their business. You talked about your cup running over. Brad talked about hammering home something last week. And Gracie, a couple weeks ago, we talked about like dough rising or something.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting how that works out.
Yeah.
I love that. So I want to get back to the burnout question for a second. And I don't want to delve too much into it, because I know sometimes it's fresh and for people, and it's a lot to talk about. But what are some things that you identified now looking back on that situation you can identify as these were signs that I was starting to get burned out? This way people may be able to, who are living in these situations, might be able to sort of self-identify that they are actually in a burnout situation.
Right. I think it all started mentally at first, and then it became physical, actually. It got to the point that I physically could not work an entire day in the environment that I was in without having some sort of reaction. And that is when I knew that it was time to stop. I lost 70 pounds over the last year and really decided to make my health a priority. That was physical and mental. And having the physical reaction on my body that I did, I'm so glad that I had made health a priority in that space as well, because that helped, prevent it from being a total implosion. But it was extremely difficult time. And, I'm so glad to be on the other side now. But it can absolutely happen to anybody. It doesn't matter where you work. It doesn't matter who you are. I just care a lot about what I do. I always have. And that leads to some consequences, and that was a consequence of the environment that I was in, was the total burnout. And that is something that, I really hope that people stop it before it gets to the point that I was at. And just recognizing the signs within yourself. I think it's going to be different for absolutely everybody. Everybody responds differently to aversion and challenges and things like that. And just because I was in the environment that I was in, I tried to put on a brave face and, continue forward, and it just wasn't possible anymore. And I just left. I absolutely left one day and never went back.
So you got to a point that was a breaking point for you. But that breaking point was so far down the burnout hole, so to speak. Now, what are some things that you can suggest for people? And we kind of talked about this the other day a little bit. In full disclosure, we have a guest come on. I have a deep conversation with them ahead of time to learn more about them, so I know what to ask. So I'm referring back to that a little bit. But we had this conversation about you got to the point where, okay, you couldn't take it anymore. But you're so far in the burnout hole. What are some things that you can suggest for people who are sort of getting there, but maybe just think about, I don't want to say courage, that don't have the courage to jump ship or find something else, but maybe just they don't know how to do that. They think they're stuck in where they're at, and this is the life they're going to have to live. But you're living proof that there's hope on the other side of it. So what's a piece of advice for somebody who's in that right now?
I think feeling helpless and stuck was something that I definitely felt with. And at the time, I wish I had taken some more ownership over that, personally as well. And not fight back, but stand up for myself and, communicate things like that, with my team as well. It wasn't that I felt like I didn't communicate, but I wasn't heard. And so maybe adjusting my approach would have been something that I could have done. Maybe, I think just being quiet and listening for your purpose, I think it'll find you. Mine found me in a time that was really hard and dark. So I feel like if I could find mine during that time, anybody can. And finding what my purpose is now how I prevent burnout. I am exhausted right now. I work 20 hours a day. I do nothing but think about this business, but I'm not burnt out. It's a different life that I have now. And I think taking the ownership over my situation was what put me there. No one's going to save you. You have to save yourself.
I love that. There was something that was told to me a long time ago. My dad told me this, but it's a phrase that's been around a long time. If you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life.
I think that that's exactly what's happening here. And I know that I can do more and I can, grow this, but trying to get my feet under me right now with what it already is so interesting and fun. And, the sky's the limit. And that's so cliche and silly to say, but it really is. I mean, there is no top anymore. I can do absolutely anything I want to do. And you mentioned, never working for another person again. That was just my personal experience. I've just had really, really negative experiences with employers in the past, whether it be corporate America, where we were in COVID and the owner of the company was on a yacht doing video calls with us while we were all, being put on temporary leave and, losing our jobs. And It was just like the forethought of that it was wild. And then, working in nonprofit with people that oftentimes have God complexes, that was a little bit tough as well. And I just decided that I never wanted to work for anyone else again. I wanted every ounce of effort that I put into my job to go back to my family. And now that's what I have.
I love that. And I've shared before on the show, and I shared with you in our call, that I had a similar situation where I worked for somebody for like a week. It's McDonald's, by the way. And I was off, and they called me up saying, hey, come on into work. Your name's on the board. I said, it's not. We argued back and forth. They read the board, and the board said, John, 8 to 5. I said, my name's Joey. And they said, it doesn't matter. Come on in. And I said, you know what? I'm done. It was one of those situations where as a looking at a leadership position and somebody who's in charge of you, not being respectful of your time, your name, or even just knowing who you are. And that kind of shaped me to say, yeah, I'm not going to work for somebody else. I got to take ownership of my own life and not leave it to somebody else, because somebody else could just be stepping on me or keeping me down if I don't even realize it. What, am I living to my full potential? And then from that situation sparked how am I going to lead people and guide people in a situation if I'm ever a boss? And it's the same thing where I'm going to know their names. I'm going to know their situation. I'm going to be personally involved with them. I'm going to, lift them up when they need lifting up. And it sounds like that same situation came out of this for you, where you're leading now shoulder to shoulder. You're in there with the trenches. If you ever come into the shop, and I guarantee you need to come into the shop, Camp Honey Coffee on Lions View Pike, right by Lakeshore Park. Amazing place. You walk in, you will see Whitney running around like a chicken without a head on, doing everything. And she has a full team there doing stuff, but she is doing everything. It is fantastic. I want to say it's fantastic to see, but it is fantastic to see, because a lot of times people open a business and you don't see the owner, and it's left to the employees, it's left to his staff, and things just don't go well. And the place then suffers, and then the owner gets online and complains about nobody showing up and why, oh me, oh my. Well, you're not present. I mean, it seems in this situation, and I have all confidence that you are going to succeed to the ends of the earth on this. But I have every faith that if you decide down the line that you're going to do something else, that you're going to live with the fact that you gave it your all in this to succeed. And that's what I love about it. And that's what I love about you and your personality.
I think everybody has so much potential in this world. And I think a lot of times that's not seen or that's not acted upon. And if I could do anything, it would be to encourage people to live up to their potential and take risks and be brave and all of the things that we're encouraged to do, but it's just easier said than done. And it was not easy to be brave. It wasn't. It's still not. But I'm so glad I did it. It's
very hard.
Yeah, I'm so glad I did it, though.
I'm glad too.
Yeah.
You mentioned, and I mentioned this solo trip to New York City during an uncertain time. What role did that trip play in helping you rediscover yourself, and why New York?
Well, I actually went during COVID. So in between my corporate job and my nonprofit job, I had a similar, burnout situation and didn't know what I wanted to do next. So it was COVID, hotel rooms were cheap. I got my husband's blessing to leave my family for 2 weeks and went to New York. The city was empty. I was able to go eat where I wanted. I went to museums. I went, just met people and, really, really, I've never been alone before. I got married when I was 19. I went from my parents' house straight to my husband. I just never really had the opportunity to kind of have some self-reflection, and that was a really good time for that. It led me into something else that was unexpected as well, and I'm grateful for the time that I spent there as well. But I learned that it still wasn't what I wanted. Even like you said, every job that seemed like the perfect fit, the perfect opportunity, way more than I ever should have been compensated for, amazing benefits and stuff like that in corporate America. There is a trade-off for that. And I don't want to have the trade-off anymore either. I think that I'm kind of preventing that by owning it myself. And, I do, like you said, I wash every dish in the shop. That's something that's important to me. It's mindful. It's a way that my employees don't have to do that. I clean the bathrooms myself. I'm not going to do that forever, but I want to right now while I can. And I think that, servant leadership is something that is often preached, but not actually acted upon. And I don't see myself as a servant leader. I see myself as an active leader, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
So literally running around with my staff, making sure that everything is taken care of and every, table is cleaned between guests and, things like that. I also have a hospitality background, and it's something that is truly instilled in my heart is to provide people with an environment that is happy and, welcoming and inclusive and all of those things is extremely important to me as well.
I love that. I love the fact that, like I said, you're in the trenches with them.
In the trenches.
Yeah, absolutely. And when people, it's one of those things where if you're working and you're tired, and let's say I'm an employee there, and I'm tired, and I look, and you're just scrubbing every dish and everything. I can't. What am I going to be like? Oh, look at her. She's doing all the dishes. I guess it's like you said. It's different when you have that situation where a boss either is not present or is in an ivory tower and has never worked a day in the field, or never worked a day in the business, or never worked in the trenches. And you're like, how can they relate? Why am I going to bat for them? Why am I showing up to work when I'm not feeling well? Why am I giving it 110%? Why am I staying late? Why am I arriving early? Well, because they are.
Yeah.
And they lead by example.
Right. And I feel like I really do. I just want to be a good employer. It's so important to me. And also, in full transparency, I don't know what I'm doing.
None of us do.
None of us do. That's just the truth.
We make it up as we go. As long as we're a step ahead, we're good.
And I am letting them train me too. I don't know everything. Most of them have been baristas for years. I had never made a professional cup of coffee when I opened my shop. And I need them. I really need them to show me how to do things. And hopefully they need me to show them how to do things. Yeah. And I think that's the relationship, right? It's not a trade-off. It's a relationship.
Absolutely. And then it really turns into a family.
Yeah. And I will say I have gotten burned in the past by the family dynamic. And during our training session, when I had to close down for a few days when we first opened to hire people and train them. And I really wanted to do it very intentionally. So we had a meal together and we all discussed, everything we wanted to do going forward. And I think, opening up the conversation for them as well, they have buy-in now, I listen to their opinions. Half of the drinks on the menu were created by the baristas that work for us. It's really, it's an environment that fosters their creativity and their, excitement for what we're doing too. And I think, they feel like they're bought in, it's part of the group now, as we are a legitimate team. But I'm not going to call us a family, because that is something that you can't choose. They are choosing to work for me, and they are choosing to come back every day. And that's something that I want to continue to give them that choice as well.
Interesting. I love that.
Yep.
I love that. Many people dream of starting something. Few people act. What was the turning point that you knew, and we kind of touched on it a little bit, turning point that you knew that Camp Honey Coffee had to happen?
I'd say when I cashed out my 401k.
Well, there you
go. Just went for it. I did everything wrong. Okay. But so far, it's been so right. And I'm so glad that I didn't listen to the people that told me not to do it. The people that had doubts. And I will say, it was not a welcomed process. My family was not supportive, except my husband obviously was, but my extended family was not supportive. A bunch of friends were very scared, and you and I discussed this. People are often scared for you when you make a brave move, and that's fine, but it also creates more trouble. It creates more, it was harder on my heart to have to prove them wrong too. Sure. And I would have rather just proved the public wrong instead of the people that I loved. I'll just say it that way.
Okay. No. So when you were getting this going, I have to back up for a second, because you had a plan in place, I would assume, to get this started. Oh, you're looking at me so no. Oh, boy. Because the 401k cash out is one of those things where if you're telling me, hey, I'm going to cash out my 401k, I'm like, oh, no, what the hell? What are you doing? No. It's like the last thing I would probably suggest somebody doing. Now, that being said, you have a plan in place that says this is what it's going to be, this is what we're doing, and this is how it's going to be funded, and this is how we're going to return it. Because cashing out the 401k isn't just especially for these situations, there's tax hits, there's penalties, there's a lot of stuff that you're going to get hit with in order to have this happen. So that's an even bigger risk that you guys took to do that. But the money was there to do it.
And I will say the money was there to do it because I worked in the environments that I worked in before. Corporate America may have been tough on my soul, but it also had amazing benefits that helped me develop my 401k, helped me contribute to my 401k, things like that I wouldn't have been able to do any of this if I hadn't had those pieces in place already. I did not have a plan. I just decided that, I went step by step, took it like a bite by bite, and just, that's still what I'm doing. I just keep going, and it works out. Like, I don't know how else to explain it other than it just has worked out.
Well, they say, how do you eat an elephant? Bite at a time.
Yeah, there really wasn't a plan, Joey. I'll be honest.
Okay.
Like, I mean, other than
Seat of your pants.
I mean, absolutely, and I'm so glad I did. No. I'm glad that there wasn't a plan, and I am a planner. I make lists constantly. I have a Type A personality. Like, I absolutely have a plan most of the time. But in this case, I kind of let the plan develop around, the process, if that makes sense, and then the process, paid off, and here we are.
Sometimes it's a leap of faith.
Literally. Yeah, it really was. And I'm so glad I did it. And now just, everyone that comes in and tells me that they're proud of me, heals me little by little and makes me less resentful for being alone during that time and being unsupported.
Sure.
It's okay. My husband supported me. He always has. I think if you can find one person to support you in anything scary, that's really all you need.
Well, let's talk about Ryan for a second.
Yes. Ryan's
your partner, business partner, life partner. What kind of role did he play in this transition? You talked about support. You said a few times, I'm paraphrasing, nobody to support you, but Ryan's supporting you. Ryan's there. And we always take our spouses for granted. When I say, I'm the same way. Nobody's around. My wife's behind me 100%. I just take that for granted when I talk about it a lot of times. But what kind of support? He's there. Obviously, every time I come in, he's in there doing pretty much the same stuff you're doing.
Except he's there right now.
He's using the espresso machine.
Yes, he's there right now cleaning up from our day while I get to leave and do these things.
I love it.
Ryan has always been my biggest supporter. We met when we were 15 years old at a church youth group at like a lock-in situation. Okay. And we've been together ever since. And I would say we're extremely codependent. I really don't do anything without him. Obviously, getting married at 19 was ill-advised as well, but I did it. And I'm so glad I did that too. We're still together. And, he is my biggest supporter. And any crazy idea I ever have, he's the first one to sign up. He left his very good job, to help support me. We ran out of money doing all of this. I didn't have a plan. So we were kind of going, step by step, and things ended up being more expensive than I was quoted, and things took twice as long as they were supposed to, things like that. And he decided, instead of letting me fail, that he would jump in with me. And he does that in every respect of our relationship as well. We also weren't able to conceive, so we went through an adoption process. And that was a crazy, isolating time as well, that other people were scared for us during that time as well. But we had each other, and I knew going through that process with him and how beautifully that turned out, that this would succeed with him by my side. And he planned on joining me eventually. He didn't plan on joining me so soon, but I'm so glad he did. Yeah.
I love that. You talked about 19 years old, not being, I would say I was 20 and my wife was 19 when we got married. And we are 3 weeks shy of 25 years.
Hey, sometimes it works out.
Sometimes it works out.
Yeah.
One of those rare situations, I guess.
I don't think it's as rare as you think. I hope not. Yeah.
I'm trying to make myself sound special. I don't know.
I don't know that I would suggest getting married at 19 to just everybody. No, but, I did it.
It's tough. But again, it's one of those things. I'm going to say this again. I'm going to assume you didn't have a plan for that. So you just went through it and just, this is how it's going to happen. It can be tough. My gosh. But they're still here with us, so I don't know what that says about them or what that says about us.
No, that's true. He's the only person I've ever dated, so I always say I'm either very good at dating or very bad at dating, because I never had to do it again, thankfully, and hopefully I never have to do it again. But yeah, he is truly my biggest supporter. I couldn't do any of this without him. And now, I do have the support of my family and friends, on the other side of things. And I'm so glad, I understand why people were scared for me. You and I discussed this.
Sure.
It's just part of the job, for people to be worried for you when you are, making a big change or doing something that, maybe statistically is unlikely to work out. It's just being brave enough to not worry about that and just see what happens.
Absolutely. It's amazing. I love your story.
Thank you.
How you doing? Do you need a break or anything?
I'm okay.
Perfect. We're going to keep going, guys. I love it. Vance gave me the thumbs up, and then Vance hates hitting the buttons. He's saying yes. So let's shift gears a bit and talk about coffee.
Yeah.
So we talked about this. I talked in the show. I love coffee. I got the coffee right now. This is the caramel iced mocha with oat milk from Camp Honey Coffee. I love coffee so much. My wife loves coffee so much. You can tell, hey, Joey, this coffee has hints of macadamia nut and chocolate and this cherry. I can't tell the difference. I just like drinking coffee. The vibe it brings, the community aspect of it, the fun coffee shops that you go into and see what the vibe is in there. And we plan our road trips around coffee shops. I mean, we drive to Nashville. Nashville's a 2.5 hour drive, maybe. It takes us 3.5 sometimes because we are stopping at coffee shops all along. We try to find new ones on the map to go to and hit them up and enjoy ourselves. And we drove to DC one time. It's a 7-hour drive. It took us 11 hours. Because we stopped at like 4 or 5 coffee shops along the way just to try different ones. And it's the same, same mocha for me all the time. But it's just, again, going in and seeing what the vibe is in the community. Because coffee shops are really, especially local ones, as opposed to the corporate ones, are really a sense of what the community's like, what the vibe is like in that neighborhood. And I love checking them out and seeing what's going on and see who's in there, who's working, who's got kids in there, what kind of drinks are on the menu, what are the names of the drinks because they reflect something about the town or something about the barista or the owner or something like that. We stopped into Camp Honey, gosh, I want to say it was last weekend. It might have been last weekend, actually. Wow. And you wouldn't know that it was like your first week or two open. The way things were running and how busy it was and how smooth it was from the customer's perspective. Now, I could see how stressed you guys were behind the scenes. But from our side, it looked like you guys have been open and running a well-oiled machine. And I love that. I love that perception that you guys gave off. It was great. And I know I stopped in today and it was busy.
And it feels different now. Like, I'm glad that it didn't come across, to just everyone that we were struggling and that it was something new for us. And it was, our very first time doing anything like that. And, we kind of just jumped in and let it be. And now it already feels so, and we're only 2 weeks in and it feels like a different shop already, just having help and having experienced baristas and having, the community support you mentioned. Mm-hmm. When I started this, I did the same thing. I would go around to different coffee shops, ask questions, say, what machine do you use? Do you like it? Is there anything about your bar layout that you would change now? When I was going into developing it, I didn't know what I was doing. So I asked people that did. And oftentimes those people were so lovely and so helpful and really guided me through the process, which is if you can ask someone to help you at least get pointed in the right direction, I would highly suggest that. Now that's what I ask people. I say, can you point me in the right direction? If you can't help me, awesome. Can you at least help me understand where it is I need to go find the help? So I think one of my first stops was this place called Spread Market and Larder in Nashville, in Germantown. Okay. And I went in and the owner was sitting there at a table and I just walked up to him and I said, hey, Can you give me a piece of business advice from somebody that is starting this from the ground up? I want to be similar to this. How do I do that? And he told me, find your location and develop the business around your community. And that's what I did. I was born and raised in the area that I am now serving. I went to high school up the street. You know, I passed the building every day. I think I knew what the community needed. I thought I knew. And then opening the doors, now I see that it's exactly what they needed. And everyone thanks me for, doing this where I did it and saying, they helped me develop the business around them. And I think that that's what's been so helpful too, is like I'm providing a need to the community and the community is giving back to me. And that is so exciting. And it feels so collaborative. And I love that. That's was something that I miss in working with others is collaboration. So now I collaborate with the community, if that makes sense, and then try to fill a need that they have instead of determining on my own what I think the need is.
So it was like, I want to say divine intervention because we're on Praise 96.3, but I'll say divine intervention where you develop a location around, find a location, develop a business around it. And you found a location that needed this niche. It wasn't like you're going into I don't want to throw Farragut under the bus.
I know, right? Really anywhere else is what you can say.
I was going to say anywhere else where you walk down the street and there's 4 coffee shops in the same corner. You go, I'm going to open a coffee shop here.
Right.
Great. It's not going to work. It may or may not, but it's going to be tough. You went into a situation in your space where there was a black hole for that. And you just were like, there's a need for this here. And you got to wonder why isn't this here yet? Mm-hmm. It's either a good thing or a bad thing.
I take it as a very good thing. Yeah. And that's what felt wild too, is why has no one else thought about this before? Right. Like why, and now having opened the doors, people come in and tell me all the time, oh, I thought about this forever ago and I never did it, things like that. So that is really fun to hear now. But also my son goes to school 1 minute away. We spend a lot of our time at Lakeshore Park playing sports. So I have been that mom sitting there on a Saturday with nothing to drink or eat. And I wanted to do that, to serve those people too. Serving people is about more than just serving someone that may, certain communities. It's serving all communities and, finding a need to, like I said, pour into others. It doesn't really matter who you're pouring into. Just everyone could use encouragement. There's no one on this earth that can't use a little bit of encouragement,
Absolutely.
A little bit of goodwill, a little bit of kindness. That's why coffee helps. Because like you said, it's the great connector too. Some people don't like coffee, but most people do. And if there's not something that they like in coffee, I hope I provide something else in the shop that they are looking for as well. And we ask, everyone that comes through, it's a collaborative experience in the shop too. I don't know if you've noticed that. Sometimes people will order something and then Ryan will come to them and say, let me talk to you about it. Let me talk to you how I make it. See if there's something that I can do differently or better here. And that's something that I have been preaching since I was in corporate America. And I would talk to my customers and say, is there anything that I can do differently or better? And that's something that I would bring to every one-on-one with my bosses. That's something that I genuinely feel that. And I want to do better all the time. I want it to be a space that everyone enjoys. And so I ask that all the time, and I still ask that. Is there anything that I can do better here? And I think continuing to do that will only serve the community more.
Oh, perfect. I love that. We talked about the name Camp Honey Coffee, and I know the story about how it started with bees. But can you share with the audience your bee story?
Yes, my bee story. So during COVID, everyone got a stimulus check. Well, a lot of people did. I don't know if everyone did. We got a stimulus check. And with that check, we decided we wanted to have a little bit more financial freedom because I was working in hospitality in a time that nobody was traveling and I was scared. So I wanted to have a little bit more ownership over my finances. And we thought, what could we do that would be kind of creative and different for us that wasn't within, my husband worked in a warehouse in a plant, and, he never saw the light of day. So we decided to get him out a little bit too. He thought beekeeping would be fun. So he took the master beekeeping course at UT, and, we bought 6 hives, and it was over 100,000 bees. And within the first spring, they all absconded, is what it's called. So they just leave. Bees are wild animals.
Oh, wow.
We put them in the Cherokee National Forest. They had waterfalls. They had wildflowers. It was like, could not have been a better environment for bees, and they still left. So we learned that you can't control that, and maybe that wasn't for us. So we decided to park the LLC for a few years and decide what we wanted to do next. But in opening the coffee shop, I decided, coming up with branding is very difficult, and coming up with a unique name, coming up with anything like that that's unique is very different. And so I just used the same name and, turned it into coffee. And, the LLC is just Camp Honey. And I'm excited to see where that goes. Coffee is only a part of it. And we'll see where it goes from there. But I just wanted to keep my original LLC as kind of like a nod to failure too, that it wasn't a failure. Now I was able to take the same thing and turn it into something profitable.
Well, I love it too, because the vibe when you show up, especially outside, you have picnic tables. So it looks like almost like a campground, you're showing up to something like a lodge at a campground. So it does fit the motif in the branding. So it's perfect.
I've always loved picnic as and a lot of our business is based on snacks. We often don't eat full meals. We like to have snacks, and I decided to make just some unique snacks, and I integrate local provisioners in that, and try to support as many independent businesses as I can through that as well. And that has been such an amazing community to be a part of too. Is anyone else that I can support in this, I'm trying to. And I think that has helped me be more fruitful too, of, it really does pay back. I really do. I believe that.
Yeah. And speaking of local, you mentioned when we chatted about using Facebook Marketplace to get a lot of the stuff for the shop. And procuring a lot of stuff. Obviously, that's a lot of local things. How did that shape the overall vibe of Camp Honey when you're out there trying to get all that stuff together?
Well, I would say too, my husband is very grateful because a lot of that stuff had just been in our house for a long time. I'm a collector of baskets. I'm a collector of cookbooks. Those are things that were kind of already all over my house. And I just developed a business based on that. And then all my chairs were from Facebook Marketplace. Most of the furniture, was kind of found. And even just the other day, I met a lovely couple doing a Facebook Market pickup. I run and do all those myself. And then she ended up giving me her dog. She's moving out of town. That's why she was selling the things. She gave me her dog biscuit recipe because she bakes, she used to have a pop-up thing at at a Maryville farmer's market. And she was like, I would love to give you my recipe. And that way, if I have any customers that are missing me, they can come to you and get the same thing.
That's awesome.
And I think even that is a community. I think that you can, just being a little bit, talkative is something that helps me in a lot of ways too, because I'm not afraid to introduce myself. I'm not afraid to say what I'm doing. I'm not afraid to ask for help either when I need it, which is something that I have learned here at the end of this journey as well, is when people offer help, take it. And that really has helped shape, how it's turned, into being, less found items. Now we're able to buy commercial tables if we choose. But at first, I was just trying to go based on what I could afford and what I thought would be pretty. And what's so interesting is now I get, 40 Instagram pictures a day of people tagging the space and saying it's so cute and saying, that if they could have opened a coffee shop, this is what it would look like. And that just makes me so happy that my little thoughts and the things that I thought would be cute turned out to be something that other people enjoyed too. So that's been really exciting too.
Yeah, for sure. And then obviously you guys you talked about community and having a clear mission that goes beyond coffee, and then talking about obviously having that conversation around mental health and not having it be a taboo topic. How's the community's response been so far to that mission that you're putting into place, as well as the openness around the conversation of mental health?
So nice. And, I went through a major mental health crisis at the beginning of all of this, and it was something that I had to navigate alone. And being vulnerable about it on the internet now has been the wildest thing, because 10 times a day somebody stops me and says, "Thank you for being vulnerable about your mental health on the internet." And that makes me keep going, as long as it's helping. If it helps a single person for me to have a nervous breakdown online, I'm happy to do it. I really think that this will turn into a mental health, not platform, but definitely the next part of this will revolve around mental health in some ways. The system is extremely broken. I went through a really hard time not having resources. Like you mentioned, I lost my health insurance when I left my job, and I wasn't able to seek professional help anymore. And that was extremely upsetting and isolating. And, that is something that I would love to prevent anyone else from going through again. And I also think, the part of being a good employer and stuff is I listen to my staff. If they need mental health support, I'm happy to help them with that or find them the appropriate resources. Honestly, if anybody needs help finding it. Sure. And I think just being candid about it and being honest about it has been the only way to approach it. I don't know how else to do it at this point except just be honest about it. And it is extremely vulnerable and hard, but I am happy to do it. And I really hope that the mission at some point turns into more of a mental health support. I think coffee is also mental health support. I really do. Or just in the environment, like you said, that we're trying to foster. If anyone's having a bad day, please come to the shop. Let us love on you. Let us make you something to eat and drink and send you back out into the world to try and fight, because I know it's hard. And and my husband, struggles with mental health too. It's not anything that is just me, and happy to support anyone in that space. And it is hard to ask for help, and please ask for help if you need it.
Yeah. And obviously having an outlet, listening to somebody else talk about it and relating, sometimes it's just enough for people to kind of take that first step. Yeah.
It takes the guard down from people too. I think, just being as transparent about it as I can breaks people's walls pretty quickly. And really, that's the first step in building relationships too, is I was a relationship manager professionally, and now I get to do it for fun. And that's that's been really, really rewarding as well.
I love that.
Yeah.
So this is going to lead into the next question, but what are some of your future dreams or events? You talked about expansion already. What are some of these plans you have in place? Let me rephrase that, because you probably don't have a plan in place.
No.
You have these thoughts in place about what you want, but plan to get there, we're not sure yet. But you want these things.
Yes.
What are some things that you are thinking about for expansion or your goals for Camp Honey Coffee?
We have a kitchen that's about 50 feet. It's a very, very small space, and I can do a lot with a convection oven and a food processor, but I would love a bigger kitchen to be able to explore food options as well. I have always loved to cook and bake, and part of the theme of the shop is the fair. I compete in the Tennessee Valley Fair every year in the culinary arts, and I've won several ribbons for my work, including the Sweetwater Valley Cheese Award, which is my crowning achievement to this date, because I've been training in cheese culinary arts for years now. And that was
another hidden talent we didn't know.
That was pretty much the only awards I've ever been given, but I'll take it. I'm really excited to expand the food, though, to get to be more creative with it. And within my own working environment is so funny. We are literally prepping everything for food service right in front of you while you order coffee because I don't have anywhere else to go. So it's a pleasure, but I would also love a little bit more space. So we are going to try and eventually look into having a commercial kitchen. I will also say that commercial kitchens in this area are very hard to come by. And I would love to be able to offer that space to other people as well, emerging bakers, things like that, because they can't sell their things without a commercial kitchen. Sure. That system is really difficult to navigate. So offering that space to the community would be really impactful for me, because other people, especially women, I would love to support them, you know, be able to live their dream. And if cooking is your dream, then hopefully I can help with that. And just expanding on coffee roasting would probably be our next step. Right now, we use Likewise Coffee on Magnolia. Okay. They run a women's nonprofit, and they have been so lovely to work with. They let us develop our own blend, and, you know, we ran out of matcha the other day, and the owner brought us a bag to the shop. And, you know, that is also a very special relationship that I, you know, am so appreciative of. And I would say roasting coffee would be another step. That's something Ryan would like to get into. He's a very scientific mind, and he loves, you know, that he makes all of our syrups in-house, also right in front of you.
Yeah, delicious.
And they are. That's really exciting. So we could eventually bottle and sell our own syrup, you know, things like that. We're not even sure exactly. Again, we don't have a plan. We're just seeing what works and what we love, and then going from there. Whatever makes our hearts happy, we're gonna expand on that, and that's what's next. But, you know, finding a space for that will be my next mission. I've already reached out to a few places to try and find a perfect spot for us to land that, and that's gonna be my next area of focus.
Oh man, big things.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of big things, you guys have a promotion coming up with Young Williams.
We do.
And to sort of kick off on that, or to play off on that a little bit, we are coming up with our own sort of mini promotion here for listeners of the Prosperity Lounge. If you come in and order, this is what I'm calling it. I texted you the other day. I said, we're calling it this. You said, okay, let's do it.
I wrote it down. Let's go.
The Prosperity Lounge Mocha. It's a caramel iced mocha. You can get it without oat milk if you want. I get it with oat milk.
I'm a dairy girl. We got whole milk from Waggles too, guys.
You can get it warm if you want, hot coffee as well. It's fine. But you got to get the caramel mocha. Mm-hmm. And a portion of the proceeds from that are going to go to Young Williams. But you got to order the Prosperity Mocha when you come in. And a portion of that's going to go to Young Williams. But you're also doing another event with Young Williams too, if I remember correctly.
Coming up on July 5th, it's mine and Ryan's son's 9th birthday, and he loves dogs more than anyone I've ever met, and he wants to do a fundraiser for Young Williams because people keep bringing dogs to the shop, and it's not legal to let dogs inside. So we are trying to be more pet friendly. So we are doing a big fundraiser to build picnic tables in our side yard and fence in the area so that it can be more dog friendly. And we can have a space for people to enjoy their coffee with their dogs. It really is. It's a thing on Saturdays, you know, for these people to take their dogs to Lakeshore and, you know, spend time with them. And we want to be able to support that. And Young Williams is our neighborhood animal shelter. A bunch of my staff has adopted from our dog came from Grandeur County Humane Society, but most of my staff has adopted from Young Williams. The gentleman running the board in here adopted Tiny, which is a pit bull, from Young Williams as well. And they just do really, really amazing work. And we're excited to support them and also, you know, just build that community space in their honor as well and continue to support them. It won't be a one-day thing. It'll be an ongoing thing. And we hope to develop it with several other organizations. Like I said, I worked in nonprofit and I have a huge heart for it. I didn't know exactly how I would support it going forward, but this is how I'm going to do it. And I'm excited to be able to do it my own way and, you know, be able to give back.
I love that. So we're getting close to the top of the hour. I want to get into one of my favorite parts of the show is our Q&A. This is where we hear directly from the listeners. Real questions from our guests a lot of questions for our guests. A couple questions for me, but not too much. I love this part because as we're building a community here that's paying attention, we're asking great questions, we're growing together. I love it. Full disclosure, I have a ton of questions for Whitney, but we're going to get to one or two of them right here. Let's see, there's a good one here. Jared in Johnson City sent this on the website. He said, Whitney, you mentioned being driven by anger at first, or I might have mentioned it as well. How did that turn into something productive instead of destructive?
I think I sat with the anger long enough that it turned into something that fueled me. And that was really important when I was so low with my mental health. And I don't know that it's productive to use anger, but it's what I used in the beginning. I will say, obviously, my mindset is very different now, but I was in a really dark place, and that being mad about it is what gave me the bravery to change it. And I'm grateful for that opportunity now. It was extremely hard, but I needed it. I needed the push, and I think that it worked.
That's amazing. Emily from Fountain City asked, how do you manage your mental health now as a small business owner with all the added stress?
I don't.
Okay.
No, I mean, in full transparency, losing my health insurance lost my medications as well. And that was something that I wasn't prepared for, but I have navigated it through positivity now. Like I said, when I open that door every day and people are waiting outside for what I am providing, it heals me over and over and over again. And I will absolutely need long-term mental health support, and I am seeking that right now. I've had several lovely people reach out, just being honest about it. They've reached out to offer me help, and I'm going to take the help and continue to push forward. And like I said, if I can turn any of this into a mental health support, journey, then that's going to be part of it, and that may be what's next.
We've got a question in the chat here. What's your favorite drink to make?
I like the house latte. So we sell thousands of iced lattes, and I'm so interested in. We developed everything based on the iced latte, and it's so funny that now that is what sells. But the 16-ounce whole milk latte with house syrup, my husband made the syrup for me. It's maple, brown sugar, honey, and cinnamon. And the coffee is developed on it. The milk we tested for forever and ever was based on it. And that's what I love.
Yeah, I love that. Got some good positive feedback here in the chat. Great interview. Thanks for sharing from Brian. Truth Between Lines said a very relatable story when building a business. Glad she accomplished everything. And we got VT or Vance here in the chat just telling me to smile more on camera.
I'm sorry. I smile a lot at work, Vance. I'm tired.
I know. My wife's in here asking some questions too. Thanks, Noxie. We had one quick question here, but we're running towards the top of the hour here. Tina had asked, Joey, for you and Whitney, both talked about community being a lifeline. What do you suggest for people who feel isolated and unsupported in their goals? Tina, share how what you really want to do is find a community you can align with, whether that's a faith community, a mentorship circle, a book club, something, local meetups. Just check Facebook groups, co-working spaces, things like that. You want to really get around people that can support you and lift you up. It might mean trying multiple things out and multiple places out before you settle on one. Remember, isolation might feel permanent, but it's often just a season. Stay connected, find supportive connections, and all else fails, go to Camp Honey Coffee. Have a cup of coffee. They will talk to you. They'll have a conversation. You'll talk to somebody at least that day. Key takeaways, man. Burnout doesn't have to be the end. It's the beginning. Business can be a healing space, not just a hustle space. Your support system matters more than your business plan. We learned about not having plans today. Shut up. Bravery doesn't always feel good in the moment, but it leads to the life you were made for. It's a big one. And you don't have to build it alone. Community's out there, so is courage. So if Whitney's story moved you, go visit her and the team at Camp Honey Coffee in Knoxville. What's the address again, Whitney?
5819 Lions View Pike. We're right across from the Lakeshore Park entrance next to the Veteran Cemetery.
Perfect. And the hours are?
8 to 3, Tuesday through Sunday. We have very limited hours right now because I want to be able to take my son to school every day. But eventually we'll expand on those. And Google is always up to date with our current hours. So if we ever have to close for any reason like we did when we were training, we update Google.
Perfect. And if you want more stories like this, you can also follow them. Actually, you can follow them on Instagram too. Camp Honey Coffee. Sports for small businesses. If you want more stories like this, more tools for your journey, and a safe space to grow, visit theprosperitylounge.com. Get our free guide, try the planner, join the conversation. If you miss any part of today's show, be sure to catch the replay on our YouTube channel or podcast feed. And while you're at it, like I said, visit theprosperitylounge.com. Get our free tools like the 8-step action guide, the student loan survival kit, the prosperity planner budgeting tool. It's all there for your usage. If this episode encouraged or challenged you, do me a favor. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe to the Prosperity Lounge on your favorite podcast platform or over on YouTube. Next week's episode is going to be a special episode on freedom. It's July 4th. Tune in. It's going to be amazing. I hope you all get something out of it. That's it for today, friends. Thanks for pulling up a seat in the lounge and sharing your time with us. Until next time, stay faithful, stay fearless, and remember, freedom lives where faith and action meet. The lounge is always open, and so is your next breakthrough. This is the Prosperity Lounge.
Pull up a chair. The journey's